"Greetings, traveler. I'm glad to see you in my tavern. Here you may rest after a hard road, drink a mug of good ale, and listen to an old, honest witcher's tale, one that smells of smoke, winding roads, and silver coins." The wind carried the scent of pine and whetstone across the Temerian foothills as Geralt of Rivia rode along the narrow trail leading toward Harrenhold. Evening neared, washing the sky in amber, and Roach's steady hoofbeats were the only rhythm in the quiet stretch of wilderness. Geralt had been summoned by a letter delivered in haste, poor handwriting, poorer sealing wax, but words filled with enough panic to warrant attention. "A witcher has come. He kills without reason. Please help us before more blood is spilled." Geralt had ignored stranger rumors before, bardic exaggerations, mistaken identities, frightened peasants seeing monsters where there were none. But this message had been addressed to him by name, and that made it harder to dismiss. Besides, the path had been quiet lately, too quiet for a witcher who lived by coin earned from danger. An unusual contract, even a confusing one, was better than none at all. The trees thinned as the road dipped into a shallow valley, revealing the first lights of Harrenhold. The mining town sprawled along the riverbank, its chimneys coughing thin trails of smoke. A place built not for beauty but for survival, timber houses reinforced against landslides, lanterns hanging low to fend off shadows. Miners returning from their shifts trudged along the paths, faces smeared with dust, eyes wary. Even from a distance, Geralt felt the tension clinging to the settlement like fog. A guard waited at the gate, shifting nervously at the sight of him. "Name?" he asked, voice cracking despite the attempt at authority. "You sent for me," Geralt replied simply. That was enough. The guard swallowed hard. The alderman's expecting you. Best come quick." Truth told, they don't fancy the sight of you right now. I gathered as much. They walked through the gate together, though Geralt felt the stairs before he saw them. Faces peering from windows, children pulled close by their mothers, men gripping tools as if they were weapons. The sight didn't offend him. He'd seen worse reactions in worse times. But there was something deeper here. A fear not of witchers in general, but of him in particular. The alderman's house sat near the center of the town, a squat building of riverstone. Warm light spilled from its windows, though warmth was the last thing Geralt sensed inside. When he entered, 3 men stood around a table strewn with maps and notes. The alderman, a stout fellow with thinning hair, looked up sharply. "You came," he breathed, half in relief, half in dread. "Thank the gods." "Tell me what happened," Geralt said. "Your letter mentioned an imposter." The alderman nodded vigorously. "Aye. Been here near a fortnight. Tall, pale-haired, eyes like a cat's. Carried 2 swords on his back. Folk thought him a witcher. Respected him even. Then the killings started." Another man chimed in, wringing his cap. "Tore merchants apart like they were beasts. Miners found dead in the tunnels, throats ripped out. And witnesses swear they saw you walking from the scene." Geralt crossed his arms. "Witnesses can be mistaken." "Maybe so," the alderman said. "But the tracks weren't. Whoever or whatever did this walks like a man, but kills like something else. And he wears your face, Witcher. Or near enough to chill the blood." Geralt stayed silent for a long moment. Doppelgangers existed, but they rarely kept a single form for long. Illusions could mimic appearance but not scent, gait, or voice, and a Witcher's training was not something someone imitated easily. Where was he last seen? In the old mining quarter, the alderman replied, pointing at the map. Abandoned for years after a collapse. Or hunting there. Geralt nodded once. I'll see to it. Before he could turn to leave, the alderman stepped closer, lowering his voice. Witcher, if this impostor is truly like you, then we need to know the truth. What manner of creature can wear a Witcher's form and kill with such rage? Geralt met his gaze steadily. That's what I intend to find out. He stepped out into the cold evening air, fastening his cloak as Roach snorted softly beside him. The sky had darkened fully now, the first stars blinking awake. Geralt mounted and cast one last look at the uneasy town behind him. An imitation Witcher, a murderer wearing his likeness. The path seldom offered surprises anymore, but this one stirred something like unease in his gut. He guided Roach toward the abandoned quarter, senses sharpening with every step into the deepening night. The hunt had begun. Night settled over Harrenhold with a heavy, muffled stillness, as though the very air held its breath. Geralt guided Roach toward the abandoned mining quarter, a cluster of sagging structures pressed against the foot of the hills. Lanterns did not burn there. No miners dared approach after dusk. The wind whispered through broken beams and shattered windows, carrying the scent of rusted tools and forgotten toil. It was the sort of place where memories lingered like restless wraiths. Geralt dismounted and let Roach wander near the main path. The mare would not stray far, not with danger close. He moved deeper into the quarter, boots crunching on old gravel. The darkness here felt thick, a curtain woven from dust and years of neglect. But that darkness did little to hinder a Witcher's eyes. Geralt scanned the ground, tracing every impression left upon it. Tracks, heavy footfalls, deeper than those of ordinary men. The weight distribution was familiar, unsettlingly so. The stride matched his own, and the tracks had not yet aged. The edges were sharp, undisturbed by wind. Someone had passed. Further ahead, a small shack clung to the hillside. Its door hung crooked, opening and closing with a faint groan each time the wind stirred. Geralt approached carefully. The scent reached him before he touched the threshold. Blood. Stale but thick enough to taste on the air. Not human. Goat by the smell of it. He pushed the door aside, stepping into the gloom. The interior was bare, save for a roughly hewn table upon which lay the carcass of the animal. Its throat had been torn open, ribs cracked, marrow sucked clean. This was no careful butcher's work. It was feeding, feral, uncontrolled. But a Witcher did not feed like this. Geralt's jaw tightened. Something else lived behind the borrowed form. Movement rustled above. He crouched instinctively, hand drifting toward the steel sword. A loose stone slid across the floorboards as something shifted its weight in the rafters. Geralt stilled, listening. Breath ragged, too rapid. Then a voice, cracking like brittle bark. Leave. Me. Geralt rose slowly, gaze lifting. A figure clung to the shadows high above, crouched upon a beam. Light from the doorway cut across its features, and the Witcher froze. It was his own face staring back at him. White hair hung in uneven locks around a gaunt visage. Yellow eyes glowed faintly, their pupils narrow slits. The creature's skin bore faint scars, places where needles had pierced flesh, where burns had seared patterns along bone. Its clothing resembled a witcher's, though crude and ill-fitted, as if copied from sight alone. "Come down," Geralt said quietly. The imitation bared its teeth. "No, you lied to them. You lied to me. You left me in the dark." Geralt took a careful step forward. "I don't know you." The creature's nails scraped the beam. You know the hand that made you, the hand that made me. I was made on Kaer Morhen's trial of the grasses," Geralt replied. "If someone tried to repeat it without knowledge, they knew enough to break me, enough to give me your strength, your speed, but not your mind." For a heartbeat, silence settled between them, heavy with the weight of unspoken pain. Geralt studied the creature, its trembling limbs, its labored breathing. It was unstable. The mutations were incomplete. Whatever alchemist or madman had shaped it had wrought something both dangerous and doomed. "Why the killings?" Geralt asked, voice level. The imitation lowered its head. "Hunger, pain, rage. They made me to be you. But they never finished the work. So I tore, I killed, I survived." Geralt's grip tightened on his sword. "You've harmed innocents." "Innocents?" A hollow laugh echoed. "No one is innocent in this world. You know that, Witcher." Before Geralt could answer, the creature dropped from the rafters with unnatural grace, landing a few paces away. Its posture was unsteady, yet its eyes burned with feral defiance. "You hunt me," it whispered, "but I am you." "No," Geralt replied, drawing steel. "You're an imitation, and you're dangerous." The creature lunged. Geralt sidestepped, letting the strike slice empty air. The imitation moved swiftly, too swiftly for an ordinary man, but its motions lacked discipline. Wild, uncontrolled, it snarled as it swung again, claws raking across Geralt's vambrace. Sparks flew. Geralt countered, striking the creature's ribs with the pommel. It staggered, gasping, yet did not fall. Its muscles writhed beneath its skin, twisting with unstable energy. "Stop," Geralt warned. "You won't win this." The imitation's lips curled into a feral smile. "Not win, just hurt." It charged once more, but the Witcher's blade intercepted, carving a shallow line across its shoulder. The creature recoiled, retreating toward the door. Its eyes flickered, fear, then fury, then something almost like sorrow. "You'll see what they've done." Before Geralt could close the distance, the creature fled into the night, leaping with a strength that carried it up the rocky slope and into the trees beyond. Geralt gave chase, but the darkness swallowed the imitation swiftly. Its trail dissolved among crags and bramble. At last Geralt halted, breath steady though muscles tensed. The night whispered again, empty now. The imposter Witcher had vanished, but not for long. There would be more killings, more fear. And somewhere in Temeria lurked the hand that had forged such a twisted reflection. Geralt turned back toward Harrenhold, the weight of the encounter settling over him like a rising storm. Geralt returned to Harrenhold under a sky that had begun to pale with the earliest touch of dawn. The town lay quiet, lanterns guttered out, streets empty save for the occasional dog nosing about for scraps. Yet the air seemed sharper now, tinged with a nervous expectancy. Word would spread soon enough of a strange figure seen in the abandoned quarter, of a witcher's blades ringing in the night. Superstitions thrived in such silence. When Geralt reached the alderman's house, a single candle flickered inside. The alderman himself sat at the table, face buried in his hands. He looked up as the Witcher entered, weariness etched deep into his features. "You found him?" he said, though it sounded more like a question. "I did. And Geralt removed his gloves, setting them beside the maps. He isn't a witcher, not fully. Someone attempted to create one without knowledge or skill. The alderman paled. A monster made in a man's shape. Closer to a man altered into a monster, Geralt corrected. But he bears my likeness. He moves as I move, though clumsily, and he suffers pain that drives him mad. The alderman rubbed his temples. Can you stop him? Yes, Geralt answered. A simple word, though his thoughts were not simple. But he's not the root of the trouble. Someone is attempting to imitate the old Witcher trials. Silence stretched. The alderman wet his lips nervously. Then we are caught between mad alchemists and a creature that kills without reason. Temeria has troubles enough without this. Geralt nodded. Give me time. Keep your people indoors after dusk and post guards, but do not let them try to hunt him. They fear him too much to try, the alderman muttered, but we'll do as you say. Geralt stepped outside once more. Dawn's first rays touched the rooftops with a wan gold, but the chill clung stubbornly to the air. He made his way through the streets, past the shuttered tavern, down toward the river bank. Water rushed past in a steady murmur, the only sound that felt alive in the waking town. The imitation witcher's words gnawed at him. You know the hand that made you, the hand that made me. A riddle sharpened by madness, yet not without a bitter core of truth. There had always been those who sought forbidden knowledge, sorcerers who believed themselves capable of improving upon the ancient witcher mutations. Vesemir had spoken once of experiments beyond Kaer Morhen, all ending in ruin. Could some fool believe he had succeeded where so many had failed? Geralt followed the river upstream, letting his thoughts settle into the slow rhythm of the path. Tracks appeared again near the reeds. Uneven impressions, heavy, as though the creature had stumbled. Drops of darkened blood dotted the stones. Geralt crouched, touching a smear with 2 fingers. The coagulation told him the wound was from their fight, though not severe enough to slow the creature for long. Still, it meant the imitation had fled along the river during the night. The trail continued northward toward the forest, toward isolation, toward refuge. Geralt straightened and moved on. The forest greeted him with dense boughs and shafts of morning light. Filtering birds chirped in cautious melodies, though their songs quieted as Geralt passed deeper into the woods. Something unnatural had stalked these paths in recent days. Even the smaller creature sensed it. Half an hour's walk brought Geralt to a curious sight, a circle of burnt grass, blackened and brittle. At its center lay fragments of pottery vessels, flasks used by alchemists for distillations. Their contents had soaked into the ground, leaving behind the acrid tang of mutagens, corrupted, unstable, deadly. The witcher knelt, fingers brushing the shards. Someone had prepared mixtures here. Experiments, no doubt, but by the scattered marks and the clawed indentations in the soil, the creature had also returned to this place, perhaps in search of what it had lost. A rustle behind him. Geralt drew steel in a smooth motion and turned. A figure emerged from the trees, not the imitation witcher, but a man wearing the leather-quilted armor of a sellsword. His beard was patchy, his eyes sharp, and he kept one hand raised to show he meant no immediate harm. "Easy there," the man said. "I've no wish to cross blades with a witcher." "Then speak plainly," Geralt replied without lowering his sword. "My name is Bram. I was sent to watch the old ruins beyond the ridge. My band's been keeping an eye on strange happenings. and we've seen the creature you're hunting." Geralt's white brows lifted slightly. "You've seen him?" "Aye. We kept our distance. None of us wanted to learn firsthand whether he's man or monster." Bram stepped closer, cautiously. "We know he's lurking near the ruined keep, the place folk abandoned after the last war. Something draws him there." Geralt sheathed his sword. "Show me." Bram nodded, relief softening his stance. "Follow me then, but keep your senses sharp. That creature moves like a nightmare given bones." They journeyed through the forest, weaving between pines and thick underbrush. Bram spoke little after that, his steps The ridge rose gradually, giving way to crumbled stone walls half swallowed by moss. The ruins loomed above them, an old watch keep, long forgotten, its towers broken, its halls filled with the whispers of time. Bram pointed to a shadowed archway. "We saw him slip inside there just before dawn." Geralt nodded. "Go back to your band. Stay out of sight." The sellsword didn't argue. He stepped backward, then vanished into the trees as swiftly as he had come. Geralt turned his gaze to the keep. If the imitation witcher had come seeking something, the answer lay within those crumbling stones. Sword in hand, he stepped into the darkened passage, senses honed, breathing slow. The air inside was cold, bitter, heavy with secrets waiting to be unearthed. The hunt, it seemed, had led him to the creature's chosen lair, and perhaps to the truth behind its creation. The ruined keep swallowed Geralt in dimness, the scent of cold stone mixed with the murmur of old battles, fought and forgotten. Dust drifted through gaps in the walls, stirred by the faintest whisper of wind, yet the deeper he walked, the more oppressive the silence became. Every witcher sense spread outward, listening, tasting the air, gauging faint vibrations through the soles of his boots. The creature was here, not close, but present, like a bruise beneath the skin of the world. Geralt moved through a corridor thick with fallen debris. Broken arrow slits cast narrow blades of pale light across the floor. Water dripped steadily from somewhere above, a slow, rhythmic tapping that echoed as though the keep itself were breathing. The witcher's steps made almost no sound. He navigated the ruin as if he were a shadow, slipping between other shadows. At the end of the corridor, he reached a wide chamber whose ceiling had collapsed. Sunlight spilled through the gap, illuminating shattered, but it was the pattern on the ground that caught Geralt's eye. Scratches, deep gouges carved into the rock by claws or steel. They formed no runes, no language, only the desperate repeated marks of something trying to anchor its mind. He crouched beside one of the gouges. The claw's depth spoke of strength surpassing human limits. The angle hinted at frantic motion. The scent, metallic, feverish, suggested the imitation witcher had struggled here, perhaps against itself. Geralt rose and followed the faint trail of smeared blood leading deeper into the keep. The trail wound through arches that sagged with age, past rooms filled with decaying banners and rust-eaten armor. Once, long ago, soldiers had taken refuge here. Now the keep sheltered only ghosts, and one tortured creature wandering paths carved in despair. A sudden sound halted Geralt, a distant thud, heavy and irregular, followed by a low, choked gasp. The witcher stepped silently toward it, easing into a vaulted chamber where a massive stone hearth dominated one wall. There, crouched beside the cold ashes, was the imitation witcher. It knelt, hunched over, arms wrapped around its chest, as if protecting something hidden beneath the layers of tattered leather. Its white hair hung in tangled strands, Its shoulders trembled with each ragged breath. It did not yet notice Geralt. Geralt approached slowly, blade unsheathed, but held low. "You're wounded," he said. The creature's head snapped up. Its golden eyes blazed with a feverish gleam, brighter and more unstable than any witcher's. It bared its teeth, but didn't rise. Its lips curled in a mixture of pain and defiance. "You followed," it rasped, "always following." "You left a trail fit for a blind ghoul," Geralt answered. "Why come here?" The creature looked away, gripping its side. It was home, once, before memory. Broke. Before they took me from the cages and said I would be more than a man, more like you. A bitter hiss escaped it. Chains. Voices telling me I must be strong. But the voices changed, grew frightened, then angry. Geralt stepped closer. Who were they? I don't know their names. Faces blur, hands hurt. Its gaze flickered upward again. But somewhere, I know you walked the same path. I didn't, Geralt said firmly. Whatever was done to you wasn't done in Kaer Morhen. The trials were abandoned long ago. You lie. The creature pushed itself upright, though its body trembled. You lie to them. You lie to yourself. Geralt's grip tightened on his sword, though he resisted raising it. If I wanted you dead, I would have struck already. The creature's breathing slowed. It studied Geralt with an expression that flickered between suspicion and longing, as if searching for something familiar, something that might anchor the frayed edges of its misfiring memory. You speak calmly, it murmured, like the voices that soothed me before the pain. But those voices lied too. Geralt took another step. If you want this to end differently than with steel, he said quietly, you'll have to trust me enough to talk. Who made you? Where? The Imitation's face twisted. I do not know. Memories shatter, faces blur, only pain remains, pain and hunger. Geralt sensed something then, an undercurrent in the air, a faint residue of magic not from the creature itself. He glanced past the Imitation to the hearth. Beneath the scattered ashes lay a symbol drawn in chalk, half erased. Not a witcher sign, not a mage's rune either, though it carried faint traces of alchemical craft, a marking made by someone who dabbled, poorly, in both. Someone used this place, Geralt said. Someone tried to manipulate you. The creature's expression went blank for a moment, then contorted in anguish. It pressed a hand to its skull. The whispers, the commands, they echo here. They brought me back. Wanted to see what changed inside? Geralt stepped closer still, though he knew how dangerous closeness could be. Whoever made you, if they commanded you, experimented on you, they're the ones responsible for the killings. Not just you. The Imitation trembled violently. I killed, I tore. I couldn't stop. Its voice cracked, raw and thin. I tried to remember why, but the hunger burned. You were forced, Geralt said, driven past your limits. The creature's eyes dimmed, as though struggling against an unseen force. Why don't you strike me down? Because you're not the enemy, Geralt answered, not the true one. For a moment, a fragile, fleeting moment, the Imitation's expression softened. The rage faltered. Something human flickered behind its eyes. Then the keep trembled. A low, rolling vibration shook dust from the rafters. Geralt pivoted, expecting the creature to attack, but it recoiled instead, snarling in fear. No, it gasped. No more whispers, no more commands. Footsteps sounded in the corridor beyond. Not shuffling, not monstrous. Human. Several sets, deliberate and confident. Geralt's sword rose. The Imitation Witcher staggered backward, clutching its head as though drowning in unseen torment. The true enemy, it seemed, had finally arrived, and the keep grew colder as their approach echoed through the stone halls. The footsteps drew nearer, echoing through the vaulted corridors with unnerving purpose. Geralt positioned himself between the Imitation Witcher and the archway, blade angled low, weight balanced. The creature huddled behind him, trembling, not out of fear of Geralt, but of those approaching. Whatever commanded it, whatever had shaped its tortured existence, now returned to claim it. Shadows stretched across the chamber floor as three figures emerged. They were not soldiers, nor bandits, nor sorcerers. They wore simple leather coats lined with reinforced stitching, the garments of traveling alchemists or itinerant scholars. Yet their faces betrayed something darker, cold, clinical resolve, sharpened by obsession. The man in front stepped forward. He was thin, his hair tied back in a knotted tail, his eyes glittering with a scholar's intensity that bordered on fanaticism. "So," he said, voice smooth as polished glass, "the White Wolf himself stands guard over our creation. How poetic." Geralt did not lower his sword. "I'm not fond of poets. State your business." "Our business?" The man's smile widened. "You stand in it. Our research, our trial subject, our success." He nodded toward the trembling creature. "We call him Subject Thrice Reborn." His endurance surpassed anything we dared hope. Geralt's eyes narrowed. "You tortured him, forced mutagens into him until his mind shattered." "Necessary?" the man replied calmly. "The Witcher trials were lost to time. We sought to reclaim what was taken from mankind. Warriors capable of combating threats beyond ordinary steel. You should approve, Witcher. Consider it an homage." "Homage?" Geralt's voice dropped, low and dangerous. "You took a man and broke him." "A criminal," another of the alchemists interjected, "a woman with a stern mouth and a voice like chipped stone. A murderer condemned to die. We gave him purpose, a chance to serve the greater good." The Imitation Witcher let out a hoarse cry, clutching its skull. "Lies, pain, chains, darkness." The lead alchemist frowned. "The subject's instability has worsened. His obedience wanes. We shall have to retrieve him forcibly." Geralt stepped forward, blocking their path. "You won't be taking him anywhere." "Ah," the alchemist murmured, "and now the Witcher plays hero. Surely you, of all men, understand that sacrifice is required for progress." "Geralt, you've confused progress with cruelty." The woman nodded to the third figure, a burly man carrying a crossbow loaded with a bolt tipped in some shimmering substance, a mutagenic suppressant, by the smell of it, dangerous to witchers and monsters alike. Geralt shifted his stance. "Try it." The bolt fired. Geralt moved like a blade of wind. The steel sword flashed, knocking the projectile aside, sending it rattling across the stone floor. Before the alchemists could react, he cast Ard, the burst of force, sending all three staggering backward. Dust exploded from the walls. Stones cracked. The Imitation Witcher whimpered at the sound, but did not flee. The lead alchemist recovered first. "You cannot protect him. He's too unstable. His mind is unraveling by the hour." "And whose fault is that?" Geralt growled. "A necessary consequence," the man snapped, composure cracking. "He is proof that witchers can be made again. Do you not understand? Your kind can be rebuilt. The age of monsters is not yet over. Humanity needs protectors." Geralt's grip tightened around his sword hilt. "Humanity needs protectors, yes. but not slaves fashioned from suffering, not abominations bred from ignorance. The alchemist's expression hardened into something cold and fanatical. Then you leave us no choice. He raised a hand, a signal. From the corridor behind them came a heavy, dragging sound. Geralt braced, expecting another mutated experiment, but instead a hulking figure lumbered into view. It was armored in scraps of metal and leather, its face hidden behind a crude helmet of riveted plates, but the body beneath was unmistakably altered, sinews bulging, skin marked by horrific grafts. Another failed creation. The alchemist gestured toward Geralt. "Seize him." The creature charged. Geralt met it head-on. Steel clanged against the improvised armor, sparks flying. The mutated brute swung with enormous force. Geralt dodged narrowly, feeling the gusts of displaced air as the monster's fists struck empty stone. The walls trembled. A quick sidestep, a pivot, and Geralt's blade sliced through a gap in the armor, drawing a spurt of dark, viscous blood. The brute roared, more in anger than pain. Behind Geralt, the imitation witcher moaned, staggering to its feet. No more. The lead alchemist hissed, "Subject, obey. Assist in subduing the witcher." The imitation froze. The command struck like a hammer. Its limbs shook violently, torn between instinct and conditioning. It pressed its hands to its temples, crying out. Geralt saw it from the corner of his eye, but could not break away. The brute advanced again, hammering down with both fists. Geralt rolled aside, slashing at the creature's knee, forcing it down with a guttural bellow. The imitation witcher's voice rose to a tortured wail. "Stop commanding me." The alchemist stepped closer, holding a small crystalline device that pulsed with faint magical light. "Your will is not your own, subject. Come." The creature convulsed. Its eyes flickered between obedience and rebellion. Geralt launched a final strike. His blade pierced the brute's chest, driving deep through muscle and malformed bone. The creature shuddered, then collapsed with a thunderous crash. Geralt turned, just as the imitation witcher lunged. Not at him, at the lead alchemist. With a cry born of rage and broken memories, the creature tackled the man, sending the crystal skidding across the floor. The other two alchemists scrambled back in terror. The imitation raised its claws, trembling, hesitating, caught between the urge to tear and the faint remnants of the humanity it once possessed. Geralt stepped forward, voice steady. "Enough!" The creature froze. The alchemist beneath it gasped, eyes wide with horror, unable to move beneath its strength. The imitation witcher trembled violently, caught between its create. Geralt held its gaze. "You choose now," he said. "Not them, not pain. You." The chamber held its breath. The creature's claws hovered inches above its tormentor's throat, shaking. And then, with a broken sob, it tore itself away and collapsed against the far wall, rocking back and forth, whispering, "No more, no more." Geralt exhaled slowly. The alchemist crawled backward, pale and trembling. "This experiment," Geralt said, lowering his sword toward the man, "ends tonight." Dust still drifted in the chamber's stale air as Geralt stepped toward the trembling alchemist. The man scrambled backward on his elbows, boots scrabbling for purchase on broken stone. His companions clung to the far wall, pale as moonlit ash, too stunned or too frightened to intervene. "This experiment ends tonight," Geralt repeated, his voice echoing off the crumbling arches. The alchemist found his breath at last. "Do you mean to kill us, Witcher?" Geralt's blade lowered slightly, but the danger in his stance remained. "If I meant to, you'd already be dead." but you will answer for what you've done." The man licked dry lips, anger flickering behind fear. "We acted for knowledge, for the future of mankind. The monsters grow stronger each year, yet the Witcher orders fade into memory. Someone had to attempt renewal." "By torturing helpless men?" Geralt countered coldly. The alchemist stiffened. "Helpless? They were criminals. Murderers, thieves, deserters. Society had already condemned them." "And you finished the sentence," Geralt said, "piece by piece." The imitation Witcher stirred then, curling further against the wall. It pressed its forehead to its knees, whispering broken fragments of thought, words twisted by memories that were no longer whole. Geralt turned slightly to look at it. The creature's trembling had softened, but not its anguish. Pain radiated. Whatever the alchemists had done, whatever horrors they had forced into its veins, had left wounds no blade could mend. He faced the alchemists again. "Tell me everything. Who designed the mutagens? Who commanded you?" The woman straightened, her fear replaced by something brittle and proud. "We acted under no master. The designs were our own." "Don't lie." Geralt's voice was soft but sharper than steel. "What I sensed in this keep, those runes near the hearth, were not the work of amateurs. Someone else guided your hand." The burly man hesitated. The lead alchemist shot him a warning glare, but hesitation was enough. Geralt took one step closer and the man broke. "We had a patron," he blurted. "A scholar from Oxenfurt, called himself Master Renfrey, claimed he had deciphered fragments of the old Witcher manuscripts, promised them if we helped him rebuild the trials." Geralt frowned. "Oxenfurt produces scholars, not madmen." The lead alchemist spat bitterly. "A scholar can become a madman when the world refuses to heed his brilliance. Renfrey sought recognition. When the Academy shunned his research, he turned to us instead. He paid well, too well." "And where is he now?" "We do not know," the woman replied. "He vanished weeks ago." But the subject, she gestured toward the imitation, responded to certain frequencies in the device Renfrey gave us. Proof that Renfrey altered him first. We merely continued the work he began. Geralt's jaw tightened. He began nothing. He desecrated what he didn't understand. Silence fell. Only the wind whispered through cracks in the walls. Geralt sheathed his sword, though the motion brought no comfort to the alchemists. "You three will return to the nearest garrison. You will confess everything. If you flee, I will find you." The lead alchemist swallowed, but there was no defiance left in him. "And the subject?" It rocked slowly, lost between echoes of its former self and the horrors carved into its being. "That's not your concern any longer," Geralt said. The alchemists exchanged a glance, fear mixed with relief, before gathering what belongings they could carry. They backed out through the corridor, stumbling over debris in their haste. Soon their footsteps faded, leaving the keep draped once more in somber quiet. Geralt exhaled. The imitation Witcher did not look up as he approached. Its breathing was shallow, its body curled tightly, as though the smallest movement might break it further. Geralt crouched beside it. "They're gone," he said quietly. The creature flinched, though it did not lift its head. "You drove them away. They won't trouble you again." The imitation's voice cracked. "You should have let them take me." Geralt shook his head. "You're not their property." "I'm not anything." The creature's fingers dug into the stone. "Not man, not Witcher, just broken pieces." "You were a man once," Geralt said. They stole that from you. But what you choose from here on belongs to you alone. At last, the imitation witcher raised its head. Its eyes glistened, not with Witcher's cat-like gleam, but with something painfully human. Choice frightens me. It frightens everyone. The creature studied him for a long moment. Why help me? I wore your face, killed in your likeness, brought fear to your name. You didn't choose that either, Geralt replied, and I've lived long enough not to fear for my reputation. The creature let out a fragile, broken laugh. You speak like a man with a soul. You have one too. No. It shook its head. It's been torn apart. Geralt rose. Come. Not far from here is a spring. Clean water. We'll rest a while. Then we decide what comes next. The imitation hesitated, torn between distrust and the faint hope flickering beneath its pain. Eventually it reached out a trembling hand. Geralt grasped. Its legs wobbled, but its weight found balance against the Witcher's steady presence. They walked out into the daylight. The sky had brightened fully now, warming the cold stones and casting long shadows over the ruins. Birds circled high above, singing as they crossed the ridge toward the forest. For a time neither spoke, but the burden of what lay ahead settled upon them both. The alchemist's patron still lived, and he had knowledge, far too dangerous to leave in shadows. Geralt could feel it already, another hunt rising, another storm gathering beyond the horizon. Yet for now, he guided the imitation witcher through the forest, step by careful step, toward the spring's gentle water and the first moment of peace the creature had known in years. The spring lay nestled in a hollow where moss blanketed the stones like an old green pelt. Sunlight filtered through the high boughs, softer here than in the wild forest beyond. Water bubbled from a crack in the rock, running clear and cold into a shallow pool fringed with ferns. It was the kind of place wanderers sought for respite, a quiet pocket of the world where troubles dared not intrude. Geralt guided the imitation witcher to the water's edge. The creature stared at the pool as though beholding something foreign, a thing known only in fractured memories. Drink, Geralt said gently. The creature knelt stiffly. Its reflection trembled upon the surface. The pale hair, the scarred cheeks, the haunted golden eyes. It dipped its hands and lifted water to its lips. Then again, and again, as if the spring might wash away everything it no longer understood. Geralt remained near, watchful but not looming. His senses stretched outward, listening to the woods, gauging the creature's tremors, noting the faint scent of instability lingering around it. Whatever experiments had been inflicted upon this poor soul, their effects still ran wild beneath its skin. When the creature had drunk its fill, it sank back. The cold feels good, it murmured, quiet, untouched. It's a safe place, Geralt answered. Safe. The imitation repeated the word as though tasting its meaning. I don't remember safe. Only chains? Only orders? Geralt sat beside him, arms resting across his knees. Memories can heal or fade. You're not bound to them. The creature turned its head, studying him with a strange intensity. You speak as though you know my suffering. No, Geralt replied. I had a choice. The children of Kaer Morhen were not taken in chains. We went willingly, most of us. And even then, many did not survive. The creature shivered. I remember being cold, voices telling me to endure, but the shapes were wrong. Not like you, not like witchers. Geralt nodded. Those alchemists tried to imitate the trial of the grasses without knowledge of its workings. Their concoctions lacked balance, their methods lacked discipline, and their hearts lacked compassion, he thought. The imitation witcher drew its knees closer. My body burns. Sometimes the world tilts. Sometimes I hear him whispering. Renfrey, Geralt said, the scholar your captors served. Yes, Renfrey. The creature's eyes tightened in pain. He said I would be perfect. Said he would make another like me. Said I would help build something new. Geralt's jaw clenched. Where is he? I don't know. The creature rubbed its temples. But he is close. His voice travels through the cracks in my mind. Geralt considered this. It was unlikely that a simple alchemist's device could bind a creature from such a distance. Either the imitation witcher's mind still clung to the phantom echoes of past torment, or Renfrey had crafted something far more sinister. A presence. A tether. Geralt stood. We cannot linger long. Renfrey may seek to reclaim or silence you, and if he has begun making more like you, the sooner we find him, the better. The creature looked up. You would hunt him for me, and to stop whatever he plans next. The imitation witcher hesitated, then rose unsteadily to its feet. I will go with you. Geralt eyed him. Your strength is failing, and your instincts are unpredictable. The creature's gaze dimmed. You fear I will turn. I fear you will suffer more. A long breath quivered through its chest. Then what would you have me do? Rest, Geralt said. Recover what you can. Your body is still stabilizing. I must investigate Renfrey's trail on my own. For now. A flicker of fear crossed the creature's face. You would leave me? Geralt shook his head. Not far. You will stay hidden near the spring. I'll return before nightfall. The imitation witcher trembled, then nodded slowly. I will try. Geralt turned away, scanning the woods. The alchemists had fled south, but they lacked the will or skill to pose further threat. Renfrey, however, remained a shadow in this tangled web, a scholar who believed himself capable of remaking witchers. Such delusion was dangerous, and if he had vanished before the alchemists fell apart, he might already be preparing a new hideout. Perhaps even continuing his experiments alone. A rustle behind him. The imitation witcher reached out, fingers trembling. Geralt? The witcher paused. What am I? The creature whispered. Truly? Geralt faced him fully, meeting his tormented gaze. You are a man who was wronged. You are not a monster. The imitation's breath shuddered. But I killed. So have I, Geralt said quietly. So has every witcher. The difference lies in the choices we make after. The creature lowered its hand. Then I will wait. Geralt nodded once and headed into the forest, boots treading softly amid pine needles and twisting roots. The sunlight broke through in scattered beams, guiding him southward along the remnants of a hunter's path. Birds chirped far overhead, oblivious. He walked for nearly an hour before he found traces, none fresh but clear enough to follow. Shattered glass from flasks carried by the alchemists, a torn scrap of parchment bearing scribbled diagrams, even a broken vial whose scent matched the mutagens used on the imitation witcher. The trail led deeper into the wilderness, winding toward a region locals whispered about. The Wraithwood. Geralt had heard tales of it, twisted roots, churning mists, the remnants of old magic twisted by war and time. Not a place for casual travelers, but perfect for a mad scholar hiding from the world. As he descended into the shadowed basin where the forest grew thickest, he caught the faint crackle of energy, a residue that prickled against his medallion. Someone had used magic here. Recently, he crouched beside a fallen log, tracing the markings carved into its bark, symbols half familiar, half wrong, as though someone tried to copy the runes of Witcher fortresses, but lacked the knowledge to finish them. A poor imitation, like everything Renfri touched. Geralt rose, following the faint hum of unstable magic deeper into the gloom. Behind him, far across the forest, and out of earshot, the imitation Witcher sat beside the spring. For the first time, it watched the reflection rippling on the water and did not recoil. For the first time, it wondered if healing might still be possible, but neither it nor Geralt knew that Renfri's eyes already watched the forest paths, waiting for the white wolf to step into his snare. The Wraithwood greeted Geralt with an unsettling hush, the kind of silence that felt deliberate, as though the forest itself withheld its breath. The trees grew taller here, their branches weaving together so tightly that daylight seeped through only in pale, scattered threads. Moss coated the trunks like ancient scars, and the air carried the faint tang of old magic, disturbed and restless. Geralt stepped forward, adjusting his breathing. His medallion trembled faintly, not continuously, not violently, but with a pulse like a heartbeat. Controlled magic, focused magic. Someone was near. The path narrowed between gnarled roots that resembled the grasping fingers of buried giants. Tracks marked the soil, human footprints, uneven in depth, as though their owner walked with impatience or feverish haste. Geralt knelt to inspect them. The impressions were recent, less than half a day old. One man, swift steps, no sign of burden. Renfri, most likely. Geralt rose and followed the trail. The forest thinned slightly, giving way to a circular glade where the light brightened just enough to reveal a troubling sight. A ring of upright stones encircling an old altar half swallowed by ivy. The stones bore symbols, etched crudely, yet unmistakably stolen from Witcher ritual diagrams. Renfri's work again, always half understood, half ruined. Geralt approached the altar. Bloodstains marked its top, darkened by age but not ancient, some days old. The smell lingered faintly. Animal blood, goat or deer. Ritual preparations. Not sacrifices with power, but imitations meant to mimic ancient practices. He circled the altar, examining the runes carved into the earth. They were meant to channel mutagens, but their arrangement was wrong, dangerously so. If Renfri had attempted any real experiment here, the result would have been catastrophic. Perhaps it already had been. A twig snapped behind him. Geralt turned, sword drawn in a breath. A cloaked figure stood at the glade's edge, his silhouette slight, posture stiff with caution. When he lowered his hood, Geralt saw a gaunt face framed by dark hair streaked with gray, eyes sharp with intelligence and sharpened further by obsession. "Witcher," the man said with a thin smile. "I wondered when you would arrive." "Renfri," Geralt answered. The scholar inclined his head. "The very same? You've caused quite a stir among my associates." "They caused the stir experimenting on men, torturing them, and you set them on that path." Renfri stepped closer, though with careful, measured movement, as though he feared startling a dangerous animal. "I guided them, yes. And why shouldn't I? Someone needed to restore what the Witchers allowed to fade." "You speak as though my kind abandoned the world," Geralt said. "We were hunted, murdered, our secrets stolen and twisted by men like you." Renfri's eyes flashed. "Secrets that should never have been hoarded in the first place. Think of what could have been achieved had the trials not died, with your dying order." Geralt's grip tightened on his sword. "You know nothing of the trials. They are suffering beyond imagining." "And yet you live," Renfrey said. "The others of your kind live. Proof that the suffering has purpose." He paced slowly along the stones, fingertips brushing the carved runes. "I sought to rebuild that purpose, but the path has been uneven. My early subjects were too fragile, weak minds, weak bodies, but then you found him," Geralt said, voice low. Renfrey smiled, thin and sharp. "A man with uncommon resilience, extraordinary potential, though not flawless, not yet, but with refinement." "You broke him," Geralt growled. "He barely holds his mind together." Renfrey waved a dismissive hand. "All trials require sacrifice. The old trials claimed many children," Geralt said, "but they were willing. He was not." "Choice is a luxury of the privileged," Renfrey replied simply. Geralt took a step forward. "You will cease your work, destroy your notes, surrender to the garrison." The scholar laughed softly. "You misunderstand, Witcher. I am not cornered prey. I am on the cusp of triumph. And you, Geralt of Rivia, have unwittingly brought me what I require to perfect my design." He lifted a small crystalline device, the twin of the one broken in the keep. Its core glowed faintly. "You destroyed the link, the bond between you two. Your likeness, your shared traits will serve beautifully." Geralt shifted his stance. "You think you can control me with that?" "No," Renfrey said calmly, "but I can use it to call him." Geralt felt it then, a faint tremor in the forest, a subtle tug at the edges of his senses. The Imitation Witcher. The scholar's device responded to some fragment buried within the creature's tortured mind, a tether Renfrey had designed himself. "You can't," Geralt warned, stepping forward. Renfrey lifted the device. He activated it. The glade shuddered. A pulse of magic burst outward like a ripple across water. Leaves trembled. Stones vibrated. Geralt's medallion twitched wildly. The hum did not fade. It deepened, settled, spread through the forest in an invisible lattice. Renfrey's smile widened. "He hears it." "Enough." Geralt rushed forward. Renfrey flicked his wrist. The altar erupted. A shock wave slammed into Geralt, throwing him back into a moss-covered stone. His vision blurred. The world spun. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard Renfrey's fading footsteps. Then his voice, distant, echoing. "He comes, Witcher, and when he does, the final trial begins." Geralt forced himself upright, shaking his head to clear the haze. The glade stilled once more, but the pulse of magic lingered like heat after lightning. The Imitation Witcher had felt that call. Of that, Geralt was certain, and he would come, willingly or not, pain-ridden or desperately afraid, toward the voice that had tormented him for so long. Geralt wiped dust from his cheek and set off at once, for the scholar had lit a fuse, and the forest held its breath for the explosion soon to come. Geralt moved through the forest with swift, deliberate strides, following the tremor of disturbed magic that thrummed in the very air. The pulse Renfrey unleashed had settled into the wraithwood like a stain, faint yet unmistakable, a beckoning that tugged at. But Geralt knew the summoning had not been meant for him. It had been meant for the Imitation Witcher. Branches whipped past as he advanced, brushing against his shoulders like warning hands. Birds had gone silent, their nests trembling in the uneasy stillness. Even the wind seemed cautious now, threading carefully through the trees, unwilling to disturb the tension that coiled through the forest. Geralt reached a ridge overlooking the spring. His stomach tightened. The creature was gone. The moss where it had rested was disturbed, gouged with claw marks from fingers dug too deeply into the earth. The air still carried the faint scent of its fear, sharp, acrid, desperate. It had fought the call, fought hard, but Renfri's tether had been stronger. Geralt descended the ridge and knelt beside the marks. A broken branch lay nearby, smeared faintly with blood, not from fresh wounds, but from the old ones tearing open again in the creature's struggle. Small stones had been kicked aside, scattering toward the water's edge. The pool itself rippled faintly, disturbed not long ago. He touched the surface with 2 fingers. The water was still cool, but something beneath it pulsed, a lingering echo of magical resonance. It was not the creature's doing. Renfri had strengthened the tether. Geralt stood and scanned the woods. Tracks, uneven, frantic, led away from the spring, heading north, deeper into the Wraithwood. Broken branches hung at odd angles, as though the creature sprinted blindly, striking whatever lay in its path. The Witcher followed, weaving between thick trunks and fallen logs. The sound reached him first, a distant, anguished cry, the Imitation Witcher. Geralt quickened his pace, boots whispering across the forest floor. The cry echoed again, raw, wounded, distorted by torment. It spurred him faster. Soon the trees thinned, revealing a hollow where sickly mist curled around the roots. At the center of that, Geralt halted several paces away. The creature knelt with its hands pressed hard against its temples, golden eyes blazing with pain. Its breath came in ragged gasps, chest heaving, muscles twitching under the strain of invisible chains. The air around it trembled with the magic forcing its mind apart. "Look at me," Geralt said, stepping closer. The creature flinched violently as if struck by the sound alone. Slowly, it lifted its head. Recognition flickered in the depths of its eyes. And something else. Fear not for itself, but for Geralt. "He calls," the creature whispered. "He calls me to him." "I know," Geralt said. "Fight it." "I tried." The creature's voice fractured. "The pain, it tears through me. The tether binds my thoughts. I cannot hold myself together." Geralt knelt before him. "Renfri wants to use you, to force you into becoming the weapon he imagined." "I don't want to be a weapon," the creature gasped. "Not anymore." "Then listen to me," Geralt said, tone sharpened by urgency. "You can resist him." The Imitation Witcher shook violently. "I can't. He built the path inside my mind. He carved it. Every command, every touch of his voice, etched into me." Geralt reached out, placing a hand on the creature's shoulder. The trembling slowed for a moment. The creature stared at him, breath ragged as if steadied by the contact alone. "He cannot control what you choose," Geralt said, "but he can tear me apart trying," the creature whispered. A flicker of agony crossed its face, then its body convulsed. Geralt tightened his grip. "Stay with me." "He is close," the Imitation rasped. "He waits at the heart of the wood, at the circle of stones, where he made me bleed, where he remade me." Geralt rose. "Then we go there together." The creature stared at him, confused, afraid. "If I go, he will turn me against you." "Let him try," Geralt said, steel entering his voice. "I will not leave you to face him alone." The creature gasped, collapsing forward, palms digging into the soil. Renfri's call deepened, pressing down like an invisible hand squeezing its skull. Geralt lifted him by the arm. "Stand." The Imitation Witcher tried. His legs buckled once, twice before finally holding. He swayed but steadied himself against a tree. His breath drew in sharp, painful gulps. "Good," Geralt said. "We move now." The creature nodded weakly. Side by side, Witcher and Imitation advanced through the wraithwood. The forest grew darker with each step, the air thicker, the mist rising in veils that clung to them like cold fingers. Strange shapes seemed to shift at the edges of vision, roots twisting, shadows bending, but none drew close. Even the forest feared the power pulsing through its center. The Imitation Witcher's breaths grew uneven. His hands twitched, struggling not to claw at his own head. "He waits," he murmured. "Yes," Geralt said, "I know." A path opened before them, a straight, narrow stretch lined by trees whose bark bore carved symbols, Witcher runes altered and corrupted. Renfri's work again. At the far end glowed faint light. The circle of stones. Geralt stopped. "Listen to me. Once we enter, he may try to command you. He may try to use you." The creature swallowed. "I will fight. But if I lose, you won't," Geralt said, "and if you falter, I'll bring you back." The Imitation Witcher's eyes softened, not with hope, but with something quieter, something nearly forgotten, as trust. A tremor of renewed pain shuddered through him, but he nodded. Together they stepped forward. The glade burst into view like a wound carved into the forest. Torches burned with unnatural green flames, casting eerie light across the standing stones. At the center stood Renfri, his cloak billowing in the breeze, stirred by the pulsing magic. His crystalline device now thrummed with power, the glow brighter, sharper. He smiled at last. The Imitation Witcher staggered, clutching his chest as the tether tightened. Geralt stepped in front of him. Renfri raised a hand. "Subject," he commanded. "Come!" The creature cried out, body arching. Geralt drew steel. Renfri's smile widened. The final trial had begun. The glade pulsed with unnatural radiance, torches flickering in green tongues that cast twisted shadows along the stones. The air hummed, throbbing with Renfri's magic, vibrating with the tension that coiled between Witcher, Imitation, and Mad Scholar. Geralt felt the tremor through his medallion, a metallic warning rattling against his chest. Renfri stood tall in the center of the stone circle, crystalline device raised in one slender hand. Its glow carved sharp angles across his face, granting him a look of terrible purpose. "Subject," he commanded again, voice resonant with layered force, "come to me." The Imitation Witcher crumpled to one knee, hands digging into the soil as if anchoring himself to the earth. His breath hitched in painful spasms. The air around him rippled, the tether tightening like a noose drawn by invisible hands. "Fight it," Geralt said, stepping closer to him, shielding him with his presence. The creature shook violently. "It burns," he gasped. "He pulls at my bones." Renfri laughed softly. "A Witcher giving comfort. Now that is a novelty, but spare your breath. You cannot break what I have forged." Geralt leveled his sword at Renfri, eyes sharp and cold as winter steel. "You forged nothing but suffering. Release him." "Release him?" Renfri's smile thinned. "He is my life's masterpiece. My proof that the Witcher Order can be revived, without your ancient secrets, without your moral restraints." Geralt advanced a step. "You made a mockery of the trials. You call him a masterpiece, yet you carved madness into his mind." Renfri's gaze hardened, losing its veneer of scholarly detachment. "It is not madness. It is metamorphosis. Creation demands sacrifice." Geralt's sword glinted in the eerie torchlight. "Enough!" He darted forward, swift as an arrow loosed from a bow, but Renfri slammed the crystalline device against the altar stone, channeling a surge of raw magic. A wave erupted outward like a sweeping gale. It struck Geralt full force, hurling him backward. He hit the ground in a roll, pushing off his hands to avoid crashing into the standing stones. His ribs ached. Breath knocked from his lungs for a moment. Renfri had no control. His strikes were clumsy, reckless, but the sheer power of the device amplified even his crude attempts. The imitation witcher screamed. Geralt spun toward him. The creature writhed, caught in the binding light seeping from Renfri's device. Tendrils of shimmering energy wrapped around his limbs, tightening, twisting. His eyes glowed brightly, not with rage, but with raw torment. Renfri raised his voice, each word slicing like a command carved into bone. Subject, obey, rise. The creature lurched upright against his will. No, he choked. Geralt, run. He will use me. I'm not leaving, Geralt said, pushing himself to his feet. Then you will die, Renfri replied sharply, and he will kill you by my hand. The imitation witcher's body jerked, limbs moving with jerky, painful stiffness. He fought the compulsion, clawing at his own arms, leaving streaks of blood, where nails tore skin. But the magic dragged him forward, step by agonizing step. Geralt readied his sword. Stay back, the creature cried. If I reach you, I cannot stop. Renfri stood behind him, expression triumphant. He is stronger than you, Witcher. Faster, a perfected version of your decaying order. Geralt's glare cut like a blade. He is not perfected. He is tormented. He is evolution, Renfri insisted. He is a victim. Enough sentiment, Renfri sneered. Subject, strike. The imitation witcher howled as his arm swung. Geralt met the blow with his sword. The force drove him back several steps, boots digging trenches in the soil. The creature's strength was immense, far beyond any witcher still bound to the natural balance of mutations. But his movements trembled, as though every fiber of his being resisted the violence forced upon him. Their blades, or blade and claw, clashed again and again. Geralt parried, deflecting rather than attacking. The creature fought like a storm caged within a fragile vessel, every strike laced with desperation, every breath a plea for freedom. Geralt, stop me, before I break. You won't, Geralt said, gritting his teeth. Stay with me. Renfri watched, breath quick, eyes wild. Wonderful, his instincts hone under stress. This is what a witcher should be. Unstoppable, unburdened by conscience. Geralt angled his sword and cast Axii, not to control the creature, but to ease his torment. A soft shimmering ensnared the air, and the imitation witcher's blow faltered. He staggered back a step, eyes flickering in clarity. Renfri's expression twisted. Interference. He slammed his palm against the crystalline device again. The green fires of the torches flared higher. Magic surged. The imitation witcher screamed, a sound that split the night and echoed through the stones. Geralt charged. Renfri stumbled back, startled by the witcher's sudden ferocity. Geralt's sword arced toward him, only for a force sphere to erupt between them, knocking Geralt aside once more. But the blast had destabilized Renfri's control. The imitation witcher collapsed to his knees, gasping, the tether flickering like a fraying rope. Geralt rose, breathing hard. He looked at the creature. Can you move? Yes, but not for long. Then stand. The creature stood. Geralt faced Renfri. This ends now, Renfri hissed through clenched teeth. Indeed it does. He lifted the crystalline device for one final surge. But Geralt was faster. He threw his silver dagger. not at Renfrey, but at the device. A shattering crack split the air. The device exploded in Renfrey's hand. Magic convulsed outward, a shock wave rippling through the earth. Torches extinguished in a single breath, plunging the glade into almost utter darkness, save for faint moonlight breaking through clouds. Renfrey staggered, clutching his scorched hand. The tether snapped. The imitation witcher collapsed. With no scream this time, no violent convulsion, just a sudden, startling stillness. Then he lifted his head. His eyes, for the first time, were entirely his own. Renfrey took a step back. What have you done?" he gasped. Geralt's answer was quiet, yet carried the weight of steel. "Freed him." The glade lay wrapped in moon-bleached quiet, the last traces of Renfrey's shattered magic fading like dying embers. Smoke curled from the broken crystalline shards, scattered across the altar, their eerie glow extinguished. The forest seemed to inhale again, after holding its breath far too long. Geralt lowered his sword, but did not sheath it. Renfrey stood hunched near the altar stone, cradling his burned hand, eyes wide with disbelief. The proud, feverish gleam he wore earlier had drained away, replaced by stark fear. Not fear of pain, fear of failure. You fool," Renfrey stammered. "You destroyed the only working conduit. Years of research, ruined." "You ruined nothing but yourself," Geralt replied, stepping closer. "And him." He glanced to where the imitation witcher slowly pushed himself upright. For the first time, the creature rose without trembling hands, without magic tugging at him like a puppeteer's strings. He braced one palm against a standing stone, steadying himself, as if relearning balance. His breaths came easier, though exhaustion clung to him like a heavy cloak. He looked at Geralt, a simple look, clear, unburdened. He whispered, almost afraid of hearing his own voice sound whole. "The noise, it's gone." The tether broke when the device shattered. The creature closed his eyes, letting relief wash through him. He exhaled slowly, as though releasing years of held breath. Renfrey trembled with fury. "You do not understand what you've undone. My design, my legacy, my future." He staggered toward the scattered shards, attempting to gather them with shaking fingers. With time, I could have perfected the process. I could have made an army, witchers reborn, obedient, precise, controlled. Geralt seized him by the collar and hauled him upright. "You would have made an army of slaves," he growled. "And every one of them would have been a monster you created with your own hands." Renfrey spat, defiant despite his fear. "A monster is merely a creature that serves its purpose. Your kind forgot that truth. You let extinction take your order. I sought only to restore it." Geralt's eyes narrowed. "No, you sought power. Witchers were never meant to be tools for men like you." Renfrey's reply faltered. "Without control, they become threats. I merely..." The imitation witcher approached them silently. Renfrey stiffened when he sensed him near. The creature paused only a step away, his gaze fixed upon his former master. No hatred born of blind rage shone there, only something quieter, deeper, a grief sharpened into resolve. "Renfrey," he said. The scholar swallowed. "Subject, you?" "That is not my name," the creature said softly. Renfrey's mouth worked, wordless, as the creature continued. "You never gave me one. You tore mine away. You filled my head with commands until I could not hear myself think. You called my agony progress and my screams instruction." He stepped closer, and Renfrey stumbled back. "You wanted to rebuild witchers, but you built nothing. Nothing but suffering." Geralt watched, blade still in hand, but he sensed the creature's intent and made no move to intervene. Renfrey backed against the altar stone, breath quickening. I remade you into something greater. I owe you nothing. The Imitation Witcher's voice turned quiet, too quiet, like a whisper before winter's wind smothers the world. But I will not kill you. Renfrey blinked, stunned. The creature continued. Death would free you. You deserve the weight of your deeds. Live with them. Renfrey trembled, confusion knotting his brow. Then, what will you do? The creature stepped aside, revealing Geralt behind him. Geralt spoke with the finality of drawn steel. You will go to Temerian authorities. You will confess everything, every test, every subject, every death. He stepped closer, voice low. If you run, I will find you. If you hide, I will hunt you. And if you dare attempt these experiments again, I will end your work along with your life. Slowly. Renfrey blanched, knees buckling. You cannot force me. Geralt pressed the tip of his blade beneath the scholar's chin. Try me. Renfrey's resolve broke like thin ice. He nodded shakily. Very well, I will go. I will confess. And not a word of Witcher secrets, Geralt added. You know nothing but false fragments. Let them die with your shame. The scholar backed away, eyes downcast, clutching his burned hand. With one last glance at the creature he once called a subject, and now feared more than death, Renfrey fled into the darkness of the trees. Silence followed. The torches along the stones guttered out, leaving only the moon and the soft whisper of wind through branches. Geralt finally lowered his sword fully. The Imitation Witcher stood still, staring at the marks Renfrey left upon the earth. Marks carved in his mind and flesh alike. Geralt approached him. You chose well. The creature did not answer at once. His eyes drifted upward toward the stars, filtering through the canopy. I felt the urge to kill him, he admitted slowly. The old commands, reflexes, they stirred, but another part of me spoke louder, the part that remembers I was once a person. Geralt nodded. You still are. The creature closed his eyes. But what now? What becomes of me? Geralt sheathed his sword, the gesture soft in the night air. We will see to that in time, but first, you need rest, healing, and distance from the place that broke you. The creature's voice thinned. Will you leave me? Geralt shook his head. No, not until you can stand without fear. A faint smile, fragile as thawing ice, touched the creature's face. I still do not know my name. You will choose one, Geralt said, when you are ready. The creature nodded once, deeply. Together they left the stone circle behind. Moss muffled their footsteps. Moonlight guided them through the trees. As they walked, the Imitation Witcher spoke again, quietly, but with a steadier voice than before. Geralt, thank you. Geralt did not reply. He simply walked beside him, the night breathing easier now, the forest shedding its shroud of dread. But though Renfrey had fled, Geralt knew the matter was far from over. Scholars desperate for forbidden knowledge had a way of resurfacing, and the secrets Renfrey scraped at, clumsily, dangerously, would draw more eyes if left unattended. Yet for now, the creature at his side needed peace more than Temeria needed justice, and for the first time since this hunt began, the Witcher allowed himself to believe that perhaps the man once lost in the creature could still be reclaimed, if not whole, then at least alive. They walked on toward a dawn not yet risen. Dawn crept into the Wraithwood with slow, pale fingers, brushing aside the night's lingering gloom. Mist rose from the forest floor in coiling tendrils, weaving between roots and stones like spirits, reluctant to yield their dominion to the rising sun. Geralt led the imitation witcher along a narrow path where the light broke through and fractured. The creature walked in silence, but it was a different silence than before. No longer the hollow quiet of someone waiting for torment, but the uncertain quiet of someone learning how to breathe anew. Every now and then, he would pause, touching the bark of a tree or bending to feel the smooth stones underfoot, as if rediscovering the simple textures of the world. Geralt kept pace beside him, watching but not interfering. Healing could not be hurried. The creature had endured years of manipulation, pain grafted into bone and memory. A single shattered device did not undo such things, but it freed the path forward. At last they reached a small clearing where sunlight spread more boldly, warming the air. A fallen oak lay across a cluster of rocks, its trunk thick and moss-coated. Geralt stopped. "We'll rest here," he said. The creature nodded and lowered himself onto the log, shoulders drooping with exhaustion. Geralt gathered a few dry branches and arranged them carefully, though he did not yet ignite them. The chill of morning was gentle enough to endure. For a while they sat without words. The forest buzzed softly with the timid beginnings of daytime life. Chirping birds hidden among branches, the distant rustle of some creature foraging, the steady drip of dew falling from leaves. It felt peaceful, deceptively so, as though the world wished to blot out the night's horrors with quiet routine. At length, the imitation witcher spoke. "Renfrey will flee far. You know this." "Let him flee," Geralt replied. "He'll face justice sooner or later. Men like him always do." The creature shifted, staring down at his hands, scarred, cracked, marked by countless failed experiments. "He will find others. Scholars, alchemists, those hungry for lost secrets. Will they not seek to rebuild what he attempted?" Geralt's gaze hardened. "Perhaps, but they will not succeed. The trials were never meant. They are too complex, too dangerous, and too bound to a knowledge that has all but vanished." "And yet," the creature murmured, lifting his eyes to the canopy above, "I stand here, proof that someone can imitate your kind, even if poorly." "You stand," Geralt corrected gently, "as proof that what they created should never be repeated." The creature considered this. His breathing grew steadier, though shadows lingered behind his gaze. A faint breeze swept through the clearing. Leaves danced overhead. The creature closed his eyes, listening. "I hear only the forest," he whispered. "Before, there was always noise, always commands. Even in stillness there were echoes." "The echoes will fade," Geralt said. "Will they?" A tremor of uncertainty touched his voice. "The memories, they are broken. Shards of things I cannot place. Faces with no names, pain with no reason." Geralt rested his arms on his knees. "You suffered at the hands of men who twisted your body and mind. You may never recall who you were before. That past may be lost." The creature bowed his head. "Then what am I to do? How do I live with nothing behind me and nothing ahead?" Geralt studied him, this reflection of himself shaped by cruelty rather than destiny, a man stripped of identity yet still grasping at the remnants of humanity. "You begin again," Geralt said simply. The creature looked up. "Begin? How?" Geralt shrugged faintly. "You learn the world as it is. You walk it. You choose each step rather than being driven. You find your own path." A long silence followed, not heavy, contemplative. "I do not deserve such a path," the creature murmured at last. I killed innocent people. I stained your name with their blood. You killed under coercion, Geralt replied, driven beyond reason by the torment forced upon you. That does not excuse the deaths, but it explains them. And excuses are not what set men free. Choices do. The creature seemed to absorb this. A path of my own, he repeated. Is there room for one such as me? Geralt's answer came without hesitation. There is room for anyone willing to walk it. The creature lowered his gaze once more, but not in despair. In thought. His fingers brushed absent-mindedly across the moss-grown bark. If I choose a name, would that be a beginning? Geralt nodded. Names have power. They mark where a man stands. The creature lifted his face to the morning light. The sun gilded the sharp angles of his features, softening them with warmth. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, as though trying to summon something from a far-off place. At last he said, I will take one, but not yet, when I understand who I wish to be. That's enough, Geralt said. A faint smile touched the creature's lips. Fragile but real. Geralt stood. We should leave the Wraithwood behind. Harrenhold needs to know the killings have ended, and there are questions to settle with the aldermen. The creature rose carefully, his movements still uncertain but no longer driven by pain. Will they fear me? Yes, Geralt answered honestly. But their fear does not define you. They set off once more, weaving between ancient trunks and fallen leaves. As they walked, the creature's steps grew steadier, and his gaze wandered often, taking in every flicker of sunlight, every stirring of life hidden beneath branches. Each detail seemed new to him. They traveled for hours, following the river's winding course out of the cursed wood. By afternoon, the trees thinned, and distant roofs came into sight. Smoke rose lazily from Harrenhold's chimneys, as if unaware of the night's upheaval. Geralt halted at the final bend in the path. Stay here. I'll speak to them first. The creature paused, but offered no argument. I trust you, he said quietly. Geralt gave a faint nod and walked ahead. Yet before he reached the town's outskirts, he sensed movement behind him. Hesitant footsteps, then a fall. The Imitation Witcher stood where Geralt had left him, watching the distant houses with something like awe and fear and yearning, all tangled into one fragile expression. Geralt, he called softly, will they ever see me as more than what I was made to be? Geralt held his gaze. In time. But first, you must see yourself as more. The creature considered this, then nodded slowly. Then I will try. He stepped forward, leaving the shadows of the Wraithwood behind him. For the first time. As Geralt neared the outskirts of Harrenhold, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the weathered cottages and crooked chimneys. A breeze stirred the brittle grass along the path, carrying with it the familiar sense of coal smoke, damp soil, and the faint tang of ore from the nearby mines. The town seemed calm, too calm, like a creature curled tight after a recent fright. Geralt slowed his stride. The Imitation Witcher followed at a cautious distance, wary but determined, each step a silent declaration that he would no longer be ruled by the shadows of his past. A lone guard stood near the wooden gate. He stiffened at the sight of Geralt approaching, but when his gaze slid past him to the figure behind, his hand flew to the hilt of his sword. Geralt raised a hand. He is no longer a threat. The guard paled. Witcher, with respect, folk saw that monster tear men apart. He was driven to it, Geralt replied, and that drive is gone. The guard swallowed hard but did not draw his blade. The alderman waits in the hall. He begged for word of your hunt. Geralt nodded. Then fetch him. The guard hesitated, then sprinted into the village. Geralt remained where he was, turning to face the creature. This will be difficult, he said. I do not expect ease. The imitation witcher's eyes held a steady brightness now, tired but resolute. Only truth? Geralt inclined his head in approval. Footsteps. A few moments later, the alderman appeared with several townsfolk trailing behind him like nervous shadows. Their eyes widened in terror as they beheld the imitation witcher. Men clutched tools as makeshift weapons. Women pulled their children behind skirts. The alderman himself froze mid-step. He stared, first at Geralt, then at the creature, then back again. His mouth worked without sound until finally he spoke. You brought it here? Geralt's voice was calm but firm. He is not it. He is a man altered against his will, and the one responsible has been stopped. The crowd murmured. Unease crackled like fire through dry brush. The alderman approached cautiously. But how do we know he won't lose control again? You don't, Geralt answered plainly. Not yet. But he has broken free from the one who commanded him. That alone makes him less dangerous than most men. The creature lowered his head. I did terrible things. I do not deny it. I cannot undo it. But I will not harm you now. Fear softened into uncertainty. Some villagers retreated. Others squinted as if trying to see beneath the monstrous rumors, searching for the truth within the scarred figure. The alderman exhaled slowly. Witcher, can such a man be trusted? Geralt met his eyes. Trust is earned, and he seeks to earn it. A quiet passed between them. Then the alderman nodded, reluctantly but without hostility. Very well. He may remain. For now. But we ask he does not enter the town without you. Agreed, Geralt said. The creature gave a small nod of gratitude. With the tension easing, the villagers drifted away, whispering amongst themselves but no longer shaking. The alderman stayed a moment longer, his features softening as he studied the creature more closely. What will become of him now? He asked. Geralt glanced toward the forest path behind him. That depends on him. The alderman considered this before. Then may fate guide you both. He departed, leaving silence once more. The imitation witcher turned to Geralt. They looked at me, with fear. Geralt sheathed his sword, his voice low. They looked at you, with caution. In time, fear can fade, but you must give them reason to let it. The creature nodded. I want to, even if it takes years. It may, Geralt said, but long roads shape a man more than short ones. He motioned toward a grassy patch near the gate. Sit, rest, we'll leave soon. The town owes you no chains, but neither should we linger too long in their unsettled sight. The creature obeyed, sitting quietly beneath the sparse shade of a withered tree. Geralt remained standing beside him, watching the miners haul carts of ore, the women hanging damp linens to dry, the children peering curiously from behind barrels before darting away in fits of giggles and fear. The imitation witcher watched as well. Life continues, he murmured, even after a storm. Aye, Geralt replied, it always does. Minutes passed, then the creature spoke again, as though gathering courage from every breath. Geralt, I have thought on names. Geralt looked down at him. And? I would take one, he said, not a name of the past, one for what I hope to become. His gaze turned toward the village, toward the people he had once terrified, and now wish to protect. I would call myself Vale. Geralt considered the name simple, strong, unburdened by history. Vale, he repeated. It suits you. Vale lowered his eyes, though not in shame, rather in the quiet humility of someone taking his first step into a world he finally wished to join. Geralt sat beside him. With a name comes a path. Are you ready to walk it? Vale hesitated. I am afraid. So am I, Geralt said often. Vale blinked in surprise. You, the White Wolf? Geralt allowed a faint smirk. They simply pressed forward anyway. A gust of wind swept across the clearing, bending grass, carrying with it the distant clang of miners' tools. The sun slid lower, casting warm gold across the earth. Geralt rose. Come, we leave Harrenhold behind us. There is nothing more here but memories. You need a future. Vale stood, steadier than before. Where will we go? Anywhere the path leads. For now it will lead us beyond these hills. Then, Geralt looked eastward where clouds gathered like distant heralds. We decide what your purpose will be. Vale nodded, determination softening the lines of his face. I will follow you, Geralt, until I learn to walk alone. That time will come, Geralt said. Side by side they left Harrenhold. The last rays of sunlight glimmered upon Vale's pale hair, casting it in a warm hue that made him look less like a distorted mirror of the Witcher and more like a man reborn. And though the road ahead wound through unknown lands and uncertain fates, neither paused, neither doubted, for both understood something unspoken. Some journeys begin in pain, but they do not have to end there. They traveled until the sun dipped low and the hills softened into long shadows. The road winding eastward was quiet, bordered by thickets of birch and rolling stretches of grass still glistening from the morning's dew. A peace lay over the land, fragile like thin ice, but peace nonetheless. Geralt welcomed it. Vale walked beside him, a silent presence marked not by menace but by tentative purpose. By dusk, they reached a crossroads where a solitary signpost leaned against the breeze. One arrow pointed toward Vizima, another toward the Pontar Valley, and the last, a weathered plank nearly swallowed by moss, simply read, North. Geralt paused there, the weight of the moment settling upon him like a cloak. Vale looked from one path to the next. Do you know where you will go next? Geralt studied the path rarely tells me where it leads, only where it begins. And for me? Vale asked quietly. Geralt turned to him. Your path is your own. You are not bound to me. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Vale's features, but I do not yet know how to walk alone. I fear what lies ahead, within me as much as beyond. Geralt leaned one hand against the signpost, considering. Fear is no enemy. It warns us. It sharpens us. You've endured worse than any fear the road can offer. That is what I fear, Vale murmured. What I endured. What still stirs within me. What if the madness returns? It won't, Geralt replied. Renfri's tether is broken. What remains are memories, not commands. Vale's gaze drifted toward the horizon where a smear of crimson lingered in the evening sky. If I am free, then I must learn to live as a free man. But how does one begin? Geralt's answer came without hesitation. By choosing. A hush settled. Then Vale stepped forward, placing a hand lightly upon the wooden post, tracing the faded letters. I will not hide, he said. Not anymore. I want to face the world, scarred as I am, and walk it on my own terms. Geralt nodded in approval. Then choose a direction. Vale hesitated only a breath before pointing to the moss-covered plank, the northern path. There, something in me says the North is wide, open, unforgiving, and honest. If hardship awaits me, let it be the kind that shapes a man instead of breaking him. Geralt allowed a faint smile. A fine choice. I would not make it without your guidance, Vale said quietly, but I cannot rely on you forever. You shouldn't, Geralt agreed, but you may rely on yourself. Vale met his gaze. And if one day we cross paths again? Geralt's tone softened. Then I'll hope to meet, not the man you were made to be, but the man you've become. A moment passed, silent, meaningful, marked by the bond neither had sought, yet neither could deny. At last Geralt watched his stride, tentative at first, then growing steadier, firmer, as though each step carved a new truth into the earth behind him. Vale paused once to glance back. Geralt? Vale? I will not forget this. Geralt nodded. Nor I. With that, Vale continued on, disappearing slowly into the cool dusk. The pale light at his back turned him into a tall, lone silhouette. And then, after some distance, into a memory the road would carry forward. When he was gone, swallowed by the rising mist, Geralt breathed deeply and turned toward the Pontar Valley. His own road awaited. Monsters still stalked the night, contracts still hung in shadowed taverns, and destiny, no matter how often he denied it, always had a way of placing new burdens on his shoulders. He set off at a steady pace, yet something tugged at his thoughts. Not danger, not dread, but a quieter sensation, a spark of hope, perhaps, though Geralt rarely gave such feelings much ground to grow. Vale had walked into the world not as a monster, nor as a witcher fashioned by cruel imitations, but as a man forging the first chapter of his true life. Not every tale ended with such possibility. Geralt had witnessed countless tragedies, countless broken souls lost to their torment. But Vale, scarred, wounded, reshaped by suffering, had chosen something else. He had chosen his own path. Geralt walked through the darkening hills, the first stars showing pale above. Roach, grazing in a patch of wild clover nearby, lifted her head and approached with a soft snort. Geralt stroked her mane before mounting. "We ride, girl," he murmured. "Still much to do." The mare set off at a gentle trot, hooves steady upon the hard earth. Crickets chirped along the roadside, their song mixing with the whisper of the wind through the long grass. And though night settled again over the land, it felt less suffocating than before, less burdened by the weight of lost souls. Geralt did not allow himself many satisfactions, but as the path opened before him, he permitted a small private truth. He had not saved a monster. He had helped a man rise from the wreckage of one. The world remained full of horrors, curses, beasts, specters, and men like Renfrey who toyed with power beyond their grasp. Yet it also held those rare sparks of strength that glimmered against the darkness, sparks that, once found, reminded even a witcher that not every broken thing must stay shattered. Geralt rode on. The night wind carried his cloak behind him. The moon traced a pale arc overhead, and the path, ever faithful, ever shifting, welcomed him back into its endless embrace. And somewhere far to the north, a newly named man walked toward a future entirely his own. Thus the tale of the Imitation ended not with death, nor with vengeance, but with a beginning forged not by alchemists, not by magic, not by fate, but by choice.